Hello students, welcome to my channel Biology Foundation. Today we'll be discussing unit Life on Earth Biology grade 6 CBSE or ICSE. So basically this is part 1 of the unit. Okay. So first we need to understand what actually is biology, or it is also known as life sciences. So when I say biology, we are more interested in studying about living organisms. We want to understand the processes that happen inside us, or the activities that take place inside us, inside our bodies. Like for example, we breathe, there is blood that's flowing. We eat, and when we eat the food, it gets digested and energy is obtained, where we perform various activities with the energy, like running, walking, playing sports, doing our works, etc. So all these processes that happen inside are called as life processes. So basically, when I say biology, it means the study of living organisms and life processes. Now, in nature, we find different kinds of organisms, starting from minute organisms like your microbes to gigantic human beings, right? So we find various kinds of animals, various kinds of birds, insects like butterflies, dogs. Here you can see a banyan tree, peacock, and it's not just these, but we also find pebbles, and in nature you find the sky, mountains, rocks, and you are surrounded by various kinds of objects like scissors, tab. We can't actually imagine a world without a mobile or a tab, right? So basically, now when I'm saying these objects, like for example your pebbles or scissor, they are said to be non-living, while these are, like your butterfly, dog, we human beings are considered to be living. Living organisms are also called animate, while non-living organisms are called inanimate. I hope you have heard the name animate for the first time in animation movies. Do you know what are animation movies where non living objects are made into living? Maybe you have seen a clock walking or shoes talking among themselves in a cartoon or an animated movie. Usually, we know that a shoe doesn't talk or even a clock doesn't walk. But in animated movies, they use certain graphics, certain technology in order to make the non living object into motion, make it living. So, animate means living, whereas inanimate means non living. So, why are we saying certain objects or certain things as non living and certain group of things as living? Like, why am I calling myself as a living organism while a pebble as a non living? Okay, so dog is considered to be living while pen is considered to be non living. Why is that so? So, basically, there are certain features that are present in living organisms that help them to distinguish from non living organisms. Now, let us consider, or let's take an example where your mom is making cake. We all know that in order to make a cake, you require a baking tray or a vessel in which your mom starts adding flour, eggs, vanilla extract, water, milk, whatsoever is needed, and then finally the procedure is followed or the recipe is followed, and you get a nice, delicious cake out of it. So, all these ingredients that are required to make the cake, she has put it into a vessel or into the baking tray, right? In the same way, just now talked in the previous slide that there are various processes that occur in the living organism. Where actually are these living organisms occurring? They are also occurring in a vessel like structure in our body, and this vessel like structure in which all the life process take place is said to be a cell. Okay, So, in human beings, all the life processes that have to take place, they occur inside a cell. Just like for the preparation of cake, your mother is using a baking tray where she is putting all the ingredients. Now, in our body, in order to get the energy for the activities that we need to perform, the various life processes that are happening, which we will discuss in subsequent chapters in detail. But where are these processes actually occurring? They are occurring in a vessel that we call it as a cell. Okay. Now, how to understand what actually is a cell? Okay, let's consider an example. In order to build a house, we all know that we need bricks, right? And these bricks are then glued to each other by means of a cement, cementing substance. So the bricks are uh, using the bricks, you construct the house. In the same way, in order to build a living organism, that basic structure that we need is a cell. Just like for a house, the basic structure is your bricks. In the same way, for human beings, the basic structure, how we are built in our body, the brick is nothing but your cell. So, hence, cell is said to be the basic structural and functional unit of life. Just as uh, I mean to say, just like in order for the house to be built, you need bricks. In the same way, a particular organism or a living being or any living organism, not only a human being, an animal, insect, bird, plant, in order to form the first structure that is the basic unit is your cell. Okay, so now when can you call a particular thing as a living or a non-living? All living organisms, they contain cells without any uh, doubt. I mean to say, every living organism has cells except with a few exceptions. I mean, viruses, these are also microorganisms, where even now scientists feel whether they have to be considered as cellular structures or acellular. That's an exception, which you will be learning in the later classes as why they are said to be an exception, or why there is still a dilemma or a confusion whether they have to be placed as living or non-living. But usually, any living organism, they contain cells in them. Okay. Okay. Now, to understand what actually is a cell, we can do a simple experiment in the laboratory. What we have to do, you have to take an onion. Okay, cut the onion into pieces. Now, using forceps, the thing that you see, the equipment or the instrument that you see here is a forceps. So using the forceps, what you do is you take the concave side of your onion and remove the transparent peel. Can you see the transparent peel? It should be removed carefully using the forceps. Okay. Now this that you are seeing is known as a glass slide. Okay, it's a glass slide. So basically, you have taken an onion, cut it into pieces, and the concave side, that means the whitish part, you face it towards it, and using the forceps, remove the transparent peel and place it on a glass slide. Now, before placing the peel on the glass slide, first you need to add a drop of water on the glass slide. Okay, and then place your peel onto the glass slide. Now, such a slide which is prepared where before adding the specimen, you are adding a drop of water. Such type of slide that you prepare is said to be a wet mount. Why is it considered to be a wet mount slide? That's because here, before placing the specimen, what is specimen? The thing that you want to visualize or see under the microscope, that is called as specimen. Okay, why am I actually doing this experiment? Just now I told you that any living organism is made up of cells. So we need a proof. We need to know whether really a living organism is made up of cells. So for that, what we are doing, we are taking onion, cutting it into pieces, and using the forceps, removing the peel, epidermal peel of onion. Now, before placing the peel on the glass slide, you are putting a drop of water and then placing the specimen. What is specimen? The substance or the object that you want to see under the microscope. Okay. Now this specimen is placed on the drop of water. Now since the specimen is placed on a slide with drop of water. The slide that is prepared is a wet mount slide. Okay. Now, after placing the epidermal peel on the drop of water, you place a cover slip. Okay. After placing the cover slip, now visualize under the microscope. Then you can see something like this, the structure, where you can see chambers, individual chambers. I hope these are visible. These are the chambers where each one is a cell. Okay, individual cell. A similar experiment can be done where uh, you can uh, take toothpick, okay, and just scrape the cheek cells. Take the toothpick, open your mouth, and start scraping gently the cheek cells. Again, take a slide, add a drop of water. That means I'm doing wet mount. And put your scrapings onto the slide. Place your cover slip and observe under the microscope. When you observe under the microscope, you see your cheek cells in this way. They are transparent because you didn't add any dye or stain. That's the reason you are observing them as transparent cells. Okay. So even this experiment proves that any living organism, here my cheek, I'm just taking the scrapings of the cheek cell and you can observe under the microscope. So again, it's a proof that any living organism is made up of cells. So basically, both the experiments, in the previous experiment, you have taken a plant. So the cell that is observed is your plant cell. In the next case, you have taken a human being like cheek cells. So basically, the cells that you're observing are your animal cells, cheek cells. Okay. Now, if you observe the cells, you can see a spherical structure inside the cells. Okay, even here you can observe it, which is darkly stained, purplish in color. Okay, these round or spherical structures which you see inside the cell, it is known as nucleus. What is nucleus? We all know that human beings, we have brain, right? It tells us, or it gives signals to other organs as how they have to function. Brain is, it's like a controlling center. In the same way, in a cell, the nucleus acts like a brain. Okay, so the nucleus is the brain in a cell. It tells what the cell has to do. The nucleus is like the controlling center. It tells what function the cell has to perform. Okay, so basically, cell is the basic structural and functional unit of life. Any living organism is made up of cell. Okay, and to prove this, there are a few experiments that can be done in the laboratory where you can either take a onion or any plant and cut it into piece, observe it under the microscope, you can see cells. And here we do a wet mount slide preparation as we are adding a drop of water before adding the object that we want to visualize or see. Okay, okay. Now assume I have told you to draw a beautiful water painting, okay, a scenery, and this is the picture that you have drawn. Okay, let's assume that this is the picture or the drawing that you have drawn. Now you show me the picture, and I forgot that it's you who has drawn the picture, and I give the credit to someone else. Okay, let's assume the picture is drawn by Radha, and I have given the credit to Lalita. Okay, since there is no name, the like name isn't mentioned on it. So now I start giving credit to Lalita. I start appreciating her. I tell the um, students to applaud in the class for to Lalita that she has really drawn such a beautiful picture. And even I'll give a chocolate to Lalita. Now, do you feel that's right? I mean, Radha feels bad about it, and she just comes to teacher and says, "Ma'am, this is the picture. This is." it's the picture which I have drawn, right? In the same way, who actually first discovered these cells? I mean, living organisms are made of cells. It's the basic structure and function unit of life. Who first discovered it? The credit should be given to that particular scientist, right? Who was it? It was Robert Hooke. He first discovered dead cells, and he has to be given the credit. And he actually coined the term for these chambers when he found under the microscope. He actually observed cells from oak tree. Okay, and he said that these structures, they appear like a honeycomb structure. Okay, and he called them as cells, those chambers. Each chamber he called it as a cell. So the credit for naming or coining the term cell was given to Robert Hooke. And Robert Hooke, he is a polymath. I mean, he has wide knowledge, and he also wrote a book by the name Micrographia, where he has whatever microscopic observations he made, he detailedly explained everything in this book by the name Micrographia. So the credit for coining the term cell is given to Robert Hooke, and he also published a book by the name Micrographia, where he explained in detail about all the things that he has observed under his microscope. Okay, okay. Now we all know watermelons, right? It's the fruit that mostly we eat in the summer season. We love it a lot because of its sweet taste. Let's assume this watermelon, let's compare the watermelon to a cell, okay? Now, inside the watermelon, we find the juicy red colored part, right? In the same way, inside the cell, you have jelly substance known as protoplasm, okay? If you compare the watermelon to the cell, then the reddish juicy part inside the watermelon can be compared to protoplasm. Okay, what is this protoplasm? It is the active part where all the life process take place inside the cell in a living organism. So the jelly substance that you find inside the cell is called as protoplasm. Okay, students. Next. Okay, maybe when you have, I hope every one of you have friends in your class. You might, and we all know that as human beings, we are very unique. Some people talk a lot, some people enjoy being together, they love to play around together, whereas a few students might love to be alone. Have you ever seen some of your friends who, I mean, they love to read alone, they love to have their food alone, they love to play alone, right? And maybe you have seen some of your friends who love to be in groups. Wherever they go during the school hours, they just go with their friends. They talk together, and they want to have even their food together. Okay. In the same way, like some people love to be single and some people love to be together. Okay. In the same way, there are organisms in nature which are made up of only single cells. Okay, where they love to be single. A single cell is what they are made up of. Such organisms are called unicellular organisms. Uni means one. So these organisms, they love to be alone, where a single cell can perform all activities, all the processes that happen inside them, just a single cell can perform it. They are said to be unicellular organisms. Examples include amoeba. If you see, this is a structure of amoeba, where it's a unicellular organism where all the processes take place in it by a single cell. And maybe you might think, what are these structures? There are certain project these are certain projections, okay, coming outward. It helps in movement of the amoeba. Okay, and you all know the germs or the bacteria which cause most of your diseases. That doesn't mean all bacteria cause disease. There are certain good bacteria as well, but usually bacteria, they come under unicellular organisms. That means they are single cell. A single cell will perform all the activities. And then you have another example, paramecium. It is also a single celled organism where a single cell performs all the activities like movement, respiration, excretion, everything. We'll talk about what is respiration, what is excretion and all, but all the processes take place inside a single cell. And you have chlamydomonas. Okay, even it is a single cell. Can you see? A single cell. And do you know what are these called? They are called flagella. Flagella. Just like we have legs, two legs to move, in the same way this chlamydomonas, it has two flagella to move. Okay, the flagella helps in movement of the chlamydomonas. So there are, see, as humans, they, do we all behave the same way? No. Where some of us love to be in groups, some of us just love to be alone, we love to enjoy ourselves, some love to share and be together with their friends. In the same way, there are some certain organisms in nature where these organisms are unicellular. That means, I mean to say, they love to be single, where a single cell performs all the activities. Okay, and here you can see pictures where there are group of friends, they're laughing together, they're eating together. In the same way, certain organisms are made up of many cells, where these cells they distribute their activities and perform functions. Like fish, cat, dog, we human beings are also multicellular. Multi means we are made up of many cells, unlike unicellular organisms which are made up of only a single cell. In case of amoeba, bacteria, paramecium, or chlamydomonas, a single cell is performing all the activities, whereas let's just consider the example of human beings. We have millions of cells where different cell has particular function, group of cells, they function together and perform a particular activity. So that's about unicellular and multicellular organisms. So, the first feature that distinguishes or differentiates between a living and non living organism is a living organism has a cell while a non living organism doesn't have a cell. How do I know that a non living organism doesn't have cells in it? Just take a sugar cube, okay, crush it, observe it under microscope, see whether you can look for any chamber like structures. You actually can't find, and these living organisms they lack cells in them. Okay, now next difference is growth and changes. You tell me, do you look the same physically, like in your appearance, the way you looked in grade one? Obviously, no, right? Or if you have a pet, a dog or a cat, here you have a lab. So basically, Labrador. So basically, when it's in the puppy stage, you can see how it's cute, and as it has grown, you can see that it gained its weight and it's more old and looks even more cute, right? So basically, uh, as we grow, there are various changes that happen in our body. Not only here, also you can see a picture where there is a baby, and now slowly becomes a toddler. Then you have a teenager, adult, and you have old man. And here you can see, maybe this you can do at home, where you can take soil and sow a seed, wait for 2 days, I mean water it and wait for 2 days, observe that, you can see that germination takes place. We'll understand what is germination, but then after a week or 2 weeks you can see that the plant has grown. So growth is observed in living organisms where there are certain changes that happen inside our body. What is the change? The cells that are present, they start dividing. Like as you grow, maybe initially you might have only n number of cells. I mean to say, if you have 20 cells initially, example, okay, just an example, mere example, but as you grow, those cells increase in their number. Okay, something in that way. So cell division takes place and cell elongation. Elongation means increase in the size of cells takes place. In human beings, growth occurs because of certain changes which happen internally inside the body. Okay, what is that change? There will be division in the cells or there will be elongation of the cells that takes place. Okay, and one more important thing that you need to understand is growth is irreversible. Have you ever seen a dog again becoming a pup? I mean, a puppy, or a plant again, the same plant coming back into a seed, or old man again becoming a baby. Physically, that's quite impossible. So growth is irreversible. Okay, and here I have given a picture of pen. Have you ever seen a pen growing? I mean, no, like if you take a pen today and see after 2 years, still it remains in the same height. But that's not the case with a baby or with a living organism. If you see a baby today, after 2 years, she might be a 2 year kid. She or he might be a 2 year kid who has increased their weight, size, where they look different, right? So basically, living organisms, growth takes place, and this growth is usually occurring internally in the form of cell division, and the growth is irreversible. Okay, and you might get it out, but ma'am, mountains, they grow in size, then should we consider mountains as living organisms? No. Here, what's actually happening is in mountains, there is the size of the mountains do increase with time. That's because of external deposition of soil or certain material above it. So here the growth is taking place, but because of external deposition of particles. Even crystals, they grow in size in the lab. In labs, crystals can be grown in size, and that's because of external deposition of certain particles or molecules. But when I say growth in living organisms, that's internally there is something happening. What's actually happening? Cell division is taking place, and cell starts increasing in its size, unlike in case of mountains and crystals. So that's the reason they are considered to be inanimate. Make yourself familiar with the term inanimate for non-living and animate for living, students. Okay. Okay, so the first difference is living organisms are made up of cells, unlike non-living organisms. And the second thing is in living organisms, growth takes place, and this growth is basically internal due to cell division. Now let's understand the third difference, which is movement. Okay, we all move. Living organisms do move, right? Maybe you have seen like animals moving, human beings moving. Animals do move for their food, shelter, and also to protect from predators. A deer moves or starts running if it's being chased by a tiger or a cheetah or a lion, right? So living organisms, they move for food, shelter, and even for defense to protect themselves from predators. Okay, even like it's quite impossible for us to be locked in a room and sit in a particular position without any movement, right? From the time we start waking up till the time we go bed, obviously we move either to uh, go and brush our teeth or to go to school, even for sports. So we show a lot of movement, right? So this movement where we move from one place to another is known as locomotion. What is meant by locomotion? It's a movement where we move from one place to another. Okay. So animals, do they move? Yes, they move from one place to another, either for food or shelter or for defense. Human beings, do they move? Yes, we move either for food or in order to perform some physical activity or to do our work. For example, if your mom or or father, they are working, they have to go to office. For that, they do show movement where they either walk to the workplace or take a cab or walk to the bus stop, something of that sort, right? So this movement from one place to another is known as locomotion. Okay. Now, the so do plants move? Like, have you ever seen a plant actually walking from one place to another? No. Then does that mean can we call plants as non-living? No. Try to understand plants also do show movement, but here we can't say or can't use the term locomotion. In plants, try if you try to understand, we all know that the roots always grow downwards into the soil. Okay. Now, this movement of the roots towards the soil is said to be, or it is called gravitropism. Tropism means movement, gravity. Okay, we know gravity which acts downwards. So, here the roots move towards the earth or towards the soil, and we always see that the stems they move towards the light. Maybe in coming classes we will understand it much better, where we'll understand it through an experiment. But we know that the stem always bends itself towards light and it grows upwards, and the root always grows downwards towards the soil. So this movement of the root is said to be gravitropism, and movement of the stem is said to be phototropism. Okay, photo means what? Light. Since the stem is showing movement towards the light, so this kind of a movement that is shown by the stem is said to be phototropic or phototropism. Tropism, movement; photo, light, movement towards the light. Gravitropism, movement towards the gravity. Okay. So okay, let's assume, let me give you an example where you are reading a book. You're sitting on a chair and reading a book. Are you moving? Maybe you're not moving from one place to another, but still your eyes are moving when you're reading, right? And even your lungs are moving as you're breathing in and breathing out. Your blood is moving inside. So movement is happening, is taking place. In the same way here in the plants, though they are not actually moving from one place to another, but still they are showing movement where the roots are moving and the stem is moving. Is it clear, students? Okay. One example is this organism is known as hydra. It basically grows in water. Okay, in the water, and it grows on certain plants. Now, hydra doesn't move from one place to another, but still it's considered a living organism because can you see the structures? They are called tentacles. What are they called? They are called tentacles, where these tentacles move. Now, if for the hydra to know whether there is a predator coming, through these tentacles it starts recognizing or detecting and keeps itself safe. Okay, but it is still attached to the plants present on the water. It actually won't move, but the tentacles, I mean, there is no locomotion seen, but movement is seen in it. Okay, so living organisms move, where human beings move, animals move, plants also move. It's not really where they don't walk from one place to another, but within the same place they show movement where the stem grows towards sunlight and the root starts growing deep inside the soil. Okay, so living organisms they show movement. Then you might say, ma'am, what about a remote control car? Even that moves. Or here you can see a rock being pushed. But try to understand here, I mean, non living organisms or inanimate objects can also be moved, but with external source of energy. Okay. If a remote control car is moving, that's because of external source of energy that you're providing in the form of a battery. Okay. Inside your remote and even inside the car. Or even here, the rock is moving because a man is pushing it. There's an external source of energy that's being provided. Okay. But unlike in human beings or even in plants or in any living organism, the movement occurs because of energy that is being generated inside. Cell will create energy that utilizing that energy. Now, see, we all eat our breakfast, right? Or we eat our lunch and dinner. Why do we eat? Or why do we need food? Because we have to perform various activities like the moment you wake up, you have to start doing your activities like bathing, brushing, bathing, combing your hair, getting dressed for school, then listening to your classes attentively, attending the assembly, going to, uh, I mean, to play your sports or any other activities, and again come back, freshen up, and do your homework. For all these activities, you need your energy. That means your brain has to function, right? So for that energy, who is providing this energy? Cell is doing certain things to get give that energy. The food that you eat provides you the energy, and this energy which is generated internally inside your body is causing the movement in you, right? So the energy that is generated inside my body helps me to move from one place to another. But in case of non-living organisms, that's not the case. A rock doesn't have energy inside for it to move by itself. No, we are basically using our energy to push the rock or the non-living objects. The chair is moved from one place to another, or a table is moved from one place to another by external source of energy. So hence, living organisms show movement, and since we human beings show movement from one place to another, or animals move from one place to another, we use a special term called locomotion. Okay, while non-living organisms do not show any movement, or if they show any movement, that's because of external source of energy. Now coming to the next difference. So first we discussed that living organisms have chambers inside them, or the basic structure with which they are made up of is the cell, and the credit goes to Robert Hooke. And the second thing that we learned is living organisms grow, where this growth is because of certain internal changes that are happening inside the body, like cell division is happening, cell elongation is taking place, and this growth that happens is irreversible, where once you have grown you can't again go back to the uh, stage. I mean, once you are an adult you can't go back to the to a stage where you are a baby, or once there is a plant that has grown, it can't again come back to the seed stage. Okay. And the third difference is we have seen that living organisms show movement, where either they move from one place to another, or within staying in the same place they might show certain movement, and for this movement energy is being generated inside the cell itself. Now the fourth difference is nutrition. Okay, so to understand what actually is nutrition, now let's take an example. Okay, let's assume your mom wants to, or you want to make a cake, or you want to prepare, so you want to prepare pastry or something. Okay, let's assume you want to make pasta. Okay, so you have taken a vessel, you have taken the flour, eggs, you have switched on the stove, and with your mother's help, you started cooking, and finally the dish came out. Okay, so here I'm sorry I have given an example of a cake. So basically you take a baking tray, you you are assisting your mom with the ingredients, where you have uh, kept the flour, eggs, vanilla extract, and all the other things, milk, whatever is needed, water, and the stove is switched on, and finally your mom and you start cooking it. And I mean, you preheat it to certain temperature, and finally the cake gets ready, and it's quite delicious, right? In the same way, certain living organisms in nature can prepare their own food. Okay, while some organisms depend on other organisms for their food. For example, best example is plants. Most of the plants can prepare their own food. Just compare this tray to your cell. Okay, inside the cell, using the cell, we all know that plants are multicellular, they are made up of many cells. Okay, now inside the cell, now plants take in carbon dioxide gas, and they take up water. These are the materials that they require. Just like to prepare cake, you need a vessel, you need the ingredients, and for cooking you need energy, which is your stove, where you are providing gas to it, gas cylinder, and then you take your mom's help, right? In the same way, plants can prepare their own food. How do they prepare? They have a vessel in them that's called your cell. And what are the materials? Carbon dioxide and water. And what acts as the stove? They use sun as the source of energy. Now just consider this example, students. You have a baking tray, You have all the materials arranged: flour, eggs, vanilla extract, everything which is required for the preparation of the cake, and even the stuff is everything is ready. Now, without you switching on the stove or without you breaking the eggs and helping and mixing the flour, will the cake be ready? Obviously no, right? In the same way, there is a special pigment in plants which is very essential or plays a very important role for the plants to cook their own food. That is called chlorophyll. It's a green color pigment. Why plants appear green in color? Because of this pigment. They have a special pigment known as chlorophyll, and this chlorophyll helps is very essential for a plant to make its own food. Just like your someone needs to on the stuff, someone needs to mix all the ingredients and set the oven to a particular temperature, and then only the cake gets baked. In the same way, for the cell to prepare, any living cell, in order to prepare its own food, it should have a pigment in it known as chlorophyll. Okay, so plants can make their own food where they use the vessel, which is your cell, and the materials that they require is carbon dioxide and water, and the energy they get it from the sun, and they prepare the food with the help of the pigment chlorophyll. Since plants can prepare their own food, they are called autotrophs. Okay, auto means what? Self. I'm not talking about the auto, which is a vehicle which helps you to transport. No, auto self. Okay, so basically here, um, plants are autotrophs. They can prepare their own food. Since they produce their own food, they make their own food. They are called producers. Okay, plants prepare their own food. They are called producers. Now, one important thing that you need to understand is not all plants are photosynthetic. Most plants are photosynthetic. There are certain plants which cannot prepare their own food and they depend on other plants. Can you see this beautiful flower? Though it looks very beautiful, but its smell is like rotten eggs. It's quite pungent. It's very smelly. The name of this flower is Rafflesia. Okay, now this plant quite beautiful. It's the biggest flower. It produces the biggest flower. It cannot make its own food, so it depends on other plants for its food. And here, can you see these yellow stems? I'm not talking about the green plant. That's a different plant, and this yellow stems, that's another plant. This is called Cuscuta. Okay, Cuscuta, it is a parasite. That means it derives its nutrition from other plant. Can you see the Cuscuta present on another green plant? So it derives its nutrition from the other plant. So not all plants are photosynthetic, but you need to understand what is photosynthetic, right? Synthetic means to produce. What do plants produce? They make their own food. Photo means what? Light. We already know this because in the previous slide I talked about phototropism, right? Photo means light. So plants are photosynthetic. They make their own food, but not all plants. Certain plants, example, Rafflesia and Cuscuta, cannot make their own food. Okay. So since plants can make their own food, they are called autotrophs. But we human beings and animals like your dog, puppy, sorry, cat, or birds, insects, they cannot prepare their own food. I mean, yeah, we cook food, but from where are we getting the materials to cook? That means I take a plant, or I depend on other things for my food, right? So we are called as consumers. We can't make our own food. Our body can't make its own food. I have to eat. I have to eat my food. I have to prepare my food, right? So basically, heterotrophs are the organisms which depend on plants for their food. Okay, depend on plants for our food. Okay, so we are called heterotrophs. We depend on plants for our food, and we lack the pigment chlorophyll. Okay, And since we can't prepare our own food, we depend on plants for our food. We are called consumers, whereas plants can make their own food. They are called producers. Okay. Now let's understand the term nutrition. What is meant by nutrition? See, the food that you eat. For example, I ate two chapatis in the morning as breakfast. Immediately, will I get energy? No. I mean, the food has to get digested, right? That means it has to go from my mouth into my food pipe, and then into the stomach, into the large intestine, small intestine. Maybe you learn all this in the subsequent videos of mine, okay? But the food has to be broken down into simple substances, and then our body gives energy. So when I say nutrition, what is nutrition? It is taking in food. That means eating food. Sorry, taking in food and using the food to perform various activities. Where food is taken in by the body, it is broken down, digested, energy is released. This energy, I'm using it to perform various activities like for jogging, talking with my friends, reading a book, or delivering a lecture, something of this sort. So, nutrition is a process where food is taken in, digested, energy is liberated. That energy, I'm using it to perform various activities. So, living organisms, any living organism, we know either they can prepare their own food or they depend on other organisms for food. But do you think rock requires food for its survival? Or a pen requires food for its survival? No, not required, right? So, I mean, uh, can you survive for a week without food and water? I won't give you, like your mother doesn't provide any food to you. Obviously, even a day you can't survive, right? In the same way, like you can't survive a single day without food. What to speak of a week? But let's assume pen. Let's take an example of a pen. Do you feed something for the pen to survive? Not really, right? So, living organisms they need food for their survival to perform various activities that is called nutrition. And since living organisms depend on plants for their survival, they can't prepare their food on their own. They are said to be heterotrophs, whereas plants, not all plants, most of the plants, because of the pigment chlorophyll, they can prepare their own food where they depend on sun, water, and carbon dioxide for the food and perform photosynthesis. That means using the light energy, they prepare their own food. Hence, they are called autotrophs. Clear? Auto means they can prepare their own food. We depend on plants for our food. We are called heterotrophs. Nutrition is the process where food that we eat is being broken down by the body into simple substances to give us energy, and that energy we are utilizing to perform various activities. That's the fourth difference. If you remember, the first difference that we talked about is presence of cell, right, right, students? Presence of a cell. And the second one is growth, which takes place internally. Third one is movement, and the fourth is nutrition. Now let's talk about the fifth one, difference that you see. Okay, before going to this term or understanding it, let's assume it's your birthday tomorrow. Okay, so obviously today night your mom stays up late, or your father and mother both of them stay up late. They see that everything is ready in the house, where they decorate, and you ask for a party with your friends. So basically, they decorate your room, everything, and the next day they see that you go to school, distribute the chocolates, and as soon as you come back from school, there's a party in the evening. So you call your friends where cake is kept ready, chocolates, and even you have a movie night or where you watch together a movie with your friends. And finally, once the party is over, we know how the room or the house actually looks. It looks something like this, right? Where the balloons are thrown everywhere or the glasses are not kept properly, because that's because you had fun, and obviously the place becomes dirty. And once your friends leave, Your mom starts cleaning, and maybe you also give a hand or help your mom in cleaning the room or your house. Yes or no? Will your mom leave the house way in the same way? Obviously, no. Why? Because it becomes too dirty, and maybe if you leave the house for 3 to 4 days in the same way, where the consumed plates, are not thrown in the dustbin, the glasses are not thrown in the dustbin, then what happens? After few days, the room starts smelling, or the house starts smelling. So it's important that you keep your house clean so that even you won't get affected with any germs and won't fall sick. So immediately after the party is done, um, obviously your parents start cleaning the house, and you start helping your mom in cleaning the house. See that the house is kept clean, right? In the same way, just as I told you in my first two slides, that biology is the science where we are more interested to study about living organisms and various processes that happen inside us, okay, or inside any living organism. So we eat food to get energy. The food is broken down into various simple products, but as the and energy is liberated, but along with energy certain waste substances are also generated inside my cell. Just like after the party is done there is waste generated, in the same way waste is generated inside the living organisms or inside the living cell, and this waste has to be removed out from the body. Otherwise what happens, just like uh, in the example that I have provided here, if the waste is not removed, what happens? The house starts smelling, and if you start living in the house in that manner, there is a chance that germs, there is a chance that you can fall sick because of the germs around present around you. In the same way, if these waste substances that are generated during the various life process, if they are not removed, then what happens? There are certain toxic substances or certain waste substances that start building in my body, and I might get a disease. So these waste should be removed. What waste am I talking about? What are the waste that are generated? The waste that is generated can be in the form of sweat, or it can be urine, or it can be a solid waste. Okay, now this waste has to be removed. How is it removed? We have special organs in human beings called as kidneys. They help in filtering the waste substance, or they filter, as a result of which urine is produced, and it has to be excreted out. I'll talk about the term, or it has to be removed out from our body. And sweat also being, I hope you know that in summers we sweat a lot, right? That's the waste substance that is being generated, and it has to get removed from our body. And even solid waste get removed out. Even lungs help in removing waste. We all know that we breathe in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide. This carbon dioxide has to be removed out. So, what organ is being involved here? Lungs. Now, what about plants? Plants also breathe, where they take in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide. But do they have lungs? No. They have special structure known as stomata. Just like we have nostrils for breathing, we have nose, right? Where with the help of nose, we breathe in oxygen, breathe out carbon dioxide. And who is helping in removal of that carbon dioxide? Lungs. Okay, it sees that the air is purified and the carbon dioxide comes out in human beings. What about plants? Plants, do they have nostrils? Do they have a nose? No. So they have a special structure known as stomata. Okay, where is the stomata present? You have your leaf in plants, right? You have the upper surface of the leaf, and then you have the lower surface of the leaf. Usually, stomata are present on the lower surface of the leaf, and these stomata help in seeing that oxygen gets inside and carbon dioxide is removed out. Okay, in plants, what are the toxic substances? Like in humans, I told you the examples as urine, sweat, solid waste. These are the waste substances generated. Then what about plants? In plants, during respiration, I'll talk about what is respiration later. But the waste substance can be carbon dioxide, or these can be gums, Can you see here? Resins, like plants, sometimes they just secrete out the waste substances. Can you see from the bark of the tree the waste substances being removed out? Okay. So see, just like a house starts smelling when the waste is not removed, in the same way, living organisms also, even in a living organism, the cell will not keep the waste substance in it. It tries to see that the waste substance is removed out. Otherwise, what happens? The toxic substances, the waste substances, they start building, and as a result of which, the person starts feeling sick by getting a disease. So, cell doesn't want it, so it starts removing it through various processes. Like animals, they have kidneys or lungs, and plants have stomata, or sometimes from the stem you can see that these waste substances are removed out. Examples are your gums and resins. Now this process of removal of waste from the body, waste is being removed from the body, that is called excretion. What is this process called? Excretion. To excrete out, to remove the waste substances from our body, it's called excretion. Okay, the term that's used is excretion. Okay, where kidneys are the organs that help in excretion by removing waste substances in the form of urine. Lungs help in removing carbon dioxide. Stomata help in the process of exchange of gases where carbon dioxide is removed out and oxygen is taken in during respiration process. We'll talk about what is respiration later, but try to understand what is excretion. When I say excretion, removal of waste. Here your mother is cleaning using a stick by mopping the floor or by sweeping the room, where you also help your mom or your parents start cleaning the house. So using the mop, you start cleaning the house to remove the waste. In the same way, our body also uses help of certain organs like kidneys or the lungs, or plants require stomata, or from the stem only these waste substances are being removed out. So this process of removal of waste substances is only known as excretion. Okay, but non-living organisms, rock, pebbles, scissors, charger, mobile, tab, do they secrete anything outside? I mean, do they release any substance outside? No, that's not seen. Okay, any living organism show the process of excretion. Okay, but non-living organisms do not excrete. So this is one of the major differences that is seen between a living and a non-living organism. So if we, for a quick recap, what did we discuss today? We just discussed firstly, we find various kinds of organisms or different kinds of objects in nature. Some we call them as living or animate, and some as non-living or inanimate. Why is that so? Why are we calling some as living and some as non-living? That's because living organisms have cells in them, which is the basic structure and functional unit of life. Experiments for it, and the credit goes to Robert Hooke, who coined the term cell. And cells can be unicellular, or I can say I'm sorry, organism can be unicellular or multicellular. And the other major difference is growth. This growth is usually internal growth, and it is irreversible growth in case of living organisms. Any growth that you see in non-living organism is because of external deposition of certain substances, and movement is seen. And this movement in living organisms, like human beings, you call it specifically as locomotion. Whereas in plants as well, you see movement, but that's not a movement where it's like in plants, you won't observe plants moving from one place to another place, another region, but it's a movement which is observed internally. And the fourth one is nutrition. We need energy to perform various activities, and we depend on plants for it. Whereas plants can make their own food. They are autotrophs and we are heterotrophs. Not only human beings, animals, birds, insects are also heterotrophs. And then finally, excretion is another difference between living and non-living organism. When I say excretion, it is removal of waste. I said in a cell, various processes take place to make us survive in this world. Okay, so when the cell is digesting our food, or when the cell is producing energy from the food that we eat, it is also generating certain waste substances. Just like when you eat a chocolate, obviously you remove the wrapper, that's the waste that's produced. Or when you eat a mango, the seed and the peel has to be removed and it has to be thrown. In the same way, the food that you eat, not entire food is converted into energy. Some food that you eat has to be removed as waste. This removal of waste from our body is known as excretion. Okay, so we learned five differences. That is, a living organism has a cell. The living organisms can grow. They show movement. Nutrition process is seen, and excretion process is observed in living organisms. Any doubts, please let me know in comments. If you like my video, please do like it, share it, subscribe my channel Biology Foundation, and thank you for listening. So this is part one of the video of unit Life on Earth. So please do like, share, subscribe my channel. Thank you for listening to my class. Bye bye. Have a good day.